I want to talk to you tonight about one of my favorite topics, which is why we need more passion in education, particularly in Jewish education, where we really want our students to connect to, be excited about, and engage deeply with their Judaism. I want to start with my own story. This is a picture of me from my high school yearbook, and as you can tell, my classmates are generously thanking me for 4 years of avid note-taking. I loved taking notes. I loved everything about it. The soft lined paper, the organized notebook, the blue Papermate pens. I geeked out on all those little details. And I really thrived in a traditional classroom with a teacher who lectured frontally. But at the same time, I realized, and this was the 1980s, that not everyone was having the same classroom experience that I was. After all, the 1980s was when Ferris Bueller's Day Off came out, and it's great to be able to reference that movie here in Chicago. And of course, that movie immortalized classroom boredom for everyone. Anyone? Anyone? The truth is that classroom boredom dates back way before the 1980s. This is a group of students from the University of Bologna in Italy in the Middle Ages. And as you can see, they're talking and sleeping through their professor's lecture, just as teenagers before them probably did and continued to do. When I left the classroom as a student and I re-entered it as a teacher, classroom boredom really became my problem. And I had to figure out a way to deal with it. I had to really engage the students. I'm an English teacher, and one of the best pieces of advice I got as a young teacher was, you don't teach English, you teach students. So right away that reoriented me, because I saw pretty quickly that my students weren't as excited about Elizabethan ghost theory and Hamlet and Macbeth as I was. I think the problem of classroom boredom has become more acute over the past few years, and that's because of technology. Because the truth is, our children were pretty much chained to the classroom desk before technology. But now we know that we can be in a room and not really be in a room. Right? There's a term for it. We call it absent presence. And of course, the students are engaging with it just as much as we are. I asked my students last year what exactly they were doing behind their computers. And they had some pretty interesting answers. So some of them told me, you might be surprised to know, that they were actually taking notes in class. And some of them said they were playing games. And others said they were using their computers to hide their devices so that they could text their friends behind them. But a couple students gave me some really fascinating answers. One student told me that she had a business and she was growing it online during the course of the day. Another student told me that his brother taught him how to trade stocks, so he was trading stocks, during class. You got to make a living. Yeshiva tuition is expensive. A student this past year told me that he does math all day, except in the classes where he's actually learning math. So our students are finding ways to engage with their passions in class. And I think we really need to tap into that more. And not only that, I think we need to connect it to what we want them to learn and know. I've been studying the work over the past few years of educational innovators. One of them is Tony Wagner, and he wrote a book called Creating Innovators. Tony Wagner is at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and he's also an expert in residence at Harvard's Innovation Lab. So in his book, Creating Innovators, he talks about the fact that he thinks education needs to be imbued more with play, passion, and purpose. And I love that. I was talking with my good friend Ken Gordon, who's the co-founder of JED Lab, and he said to me, Tikvah, I think Jewish education does a great job with purpose, but I think we can do a whole lot better with play and passion. I couldn't agree more. Another educational innovator named Will Richardson, he was one of the earliest education bloggers, and he put out on his blog a couple of years ago the following. He asked people, all educators all over the world, he said, my son loves basketball. Can I teach him all the middle school math he needs to know using basketball? And he got 60 responses from math teachers. And basically he could lay out an entire math curriculum using his son's passion of basketball. So I thought that's great. Here you can teach a kid what he needs to know for math using his own passion. Here's another example. This student is building a car. This young lady's building a car after school. And she's not a great student, she's not a great math student, but what she found out was that the knowledge and skills that she had to know in order to build the car translated into better math scores in her classroom. The work was real to her, it meant something to her, it was born out of her own passion, so it translated into actually a really useful academic exercise for her. What I also love about this example is that it's a great example of play. If you think about it, kindergartners get to play with cars all the time, and they get to take things apart and put them together with Legos and other manipulatives. But soon after, we kind of scale out play, right? We leave it alone, and we don't let kids do that enough in school. If you think about it, this is a scaled up version of play in the classroom. This is what play looks like on a really sophisticated level. So I love that. A couple of years ago, at Frisch, where I teach, I started a program called Real School, which is a passion-based learning program. In Real School, the students decide what and how they learn, and then they collaborate in teams with other students with similar interests, and they create projects and events for the real world, hence Real School's name. Now, the club started as an after-school program, but it's also now an elective, and its thinking has started to permeate Frisch's courses in educational philosophy. There are different kind of teams in Real School. There's fashion, there's app making, there's religious identity, social entrepreneurship. I just got finished a couple nights ago doing our 3rd annual fashion show, combining Judaism and the environment. This is a wonderful opportunity. Amazing things start to happen when you start to work with kids and their passions. Really interesting things come out of that. These 2 boys in our app making team, Benji's on the right there and Amitai's on the left. And they made an app, and we shared out what they were doing on our blog. And so a local director of educational technology contacted me, Shira Ackerman, and she said, would your boys be interested in coming and doing an app making workshop in my school? So I asked the boys, and they said, sure. So here we are brainstorming what that app making workshop is going to look like. So Benji is he's our coder, so he created an introduction to coding part of the workshop, and Amitai was going to take kids through the graphic design process of creating an app. And something amazing happened. In the middle of the brainstorming session, Amitai turns to me and he says, how do you teach kids creativity? And I said, that's an awesome question. And I didn't think that it was a question that you get to enough in a traditional classroom. How do you teach kids creativity? So I told him I didn't know, and he was going to have to figure it out on his own. And as you can see, he did that, because here he is with the middle school kids, and he's brainstorming with them what their app design should look like. And their teacher asked the students to reflect afterwards about the experience, and they said that they were grateful to Amitai not only for showing them the creativity needed to design an app, but also for tapping into their own creativity, for unleashing their own creativity. So these kind of amazing things that happen when you let kids not only pursue their passions, but then have a desire to kind of share it out with the rest of the world. I think this has deep implications for Jewish education, because we want to engage our kids. We want to make them really excited about what they learn, and we want them to share it with others. One of the first teams that formed in Real School was the religious identity team. They just wanted a space where they could discuss the things that interested them, that excited them, that they were intrigued about or wondering about in their Judaism. They didn't want to have to cover course material or finish a curriculum, right? Just a place to be. Another rabbi in a local elementary school kind of did the same thing. He took a chunk of time out of his curriculum and he asked his students, what mitzvah, what commandment do you want to learn? Right? A simple thing, but I think we need to be doing more of it. One of the first events we had in Real School was a Yom Iyun, a day of learning that the kids put together, student-run day of learning. So like this local rabbi who asked his students, what do you want to study? The same thing goes on. The students choose the session that they want to give, and they want to share it out with parents and the rest of the Frisch community. It was an awesome experience, and what happens, again, amazing things happen, is that students come to school on a Sunday to prepare their talk. They're learning on their own time because they're driving the learning, not the teacher. You know, there's no standardized testing in Jewish education, and I thank God for it. Everyone at Frisch knows I hate standardized testing. We have in Real School a t-shirt that says, I am more than a test score. There's no SAT you have to prep the kids for. There's no AP in Jewish education that you have to spend the year, preparing for. So it's all about, it could be all about what the kids want to know, what the kids want to learn. My dream is that one day my grandchild will say to me, "Grandma, what is that?" And I'm going to say, "Oh, that's just some old relic from the past. We used it in the 20th century in education, but we don't use it anymore." I think we need to get our kids out of the desks. I think we need to let them play more. I think we need to see what their passions are. And I think in that way they'll find their purpose as human beings and as people. And I don't think this is a new concept in Judaism at all. Right? We have the phrase, "Chanoch hana'ar al pi darko," educate the child according to his or her own way, according to his or her own passion. I want you to think about something that you're passionate about, something that gets you up in the morning, that you're excited to do, that you want to be engaged in. And I want you to think about a kid in your life who could be that excited to go to school every day because that's what he or she gets to do. Because that to me seems like the start of a lifelong journey into learning and into a really deep and rich connection to one's faith. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Eli Talks. Click through or subscribe to the Eli Talks channel for more inspired Jewish ideas.